So without further ado, let's welcome Jeff Gere.
This next story, I read it in a book called Joining In, which was about participation stories. This is one where you can participate. In Joining In, it was recorded by David Holt. But according to my other friend, Margaret Reed McDonald, she said that he didn't quite get it right because it's a folktale in Thailand. She's been to Thailand a lot. She told me the folktale, it's a little different than what David Holt did. But by the time it got to me and I read it in the book, and then I started to go like, stories have a way of changing around. Anyway, here's my version, and here it is for you. Once upon a time, you guys go, once upon a time. You guys go, once upon a time, once upon a time. There was a man. He was a big man. He was a what? A big man. He was a strong man. He was a what? Once upon a time, there was a man. He was a big, he was strong, he was ugly. Once upon a time, there was a man who was, and he also was mean. He had a mean heart. Once upon a time, in the story of the freedom bird, what's the name of the story? Once upon a time, there was a man. The man was, and he had a, and he also had a gun. And one day, that man who lived alone in the woods, inside of a house, inside a door, he got up off his floor, he walked out the door, and he heard a song that he'd never heard before. He walked into the forest. There he saw a bird. He said, oh, someone's singing. He raised his hand. He shot the bird. And the bird went, and the man went. He picked up the bird. He walked on further into the forest. There was another bird sitting on a limb. He again, and the bird went. He went. He picked up the second bird. Then he heard a song he'd never heard before in the forest. He went. I don't know that song. I don't like that song. I don't like that song. Not at all. He walked into the forest farther until he could hear it better. It was, I hate that song. He walked into a clearing, and there, on a branch was a bird. Not a big bird, not a little bird, a white bird. The white bird, wasn't so big, not so small, was sitting on a branch and singing, Nani, nani, boo. I don't like that song. I am big, I am strong, I am ugly, I've got a mean heart, I've got a gun, and I want you to shut up. Don't you sing that song again, because if you do, I'm going to blow you away. The bird went, nani, nani, boo, boo, nani, and the man took his gun and he pointed it at the bird and he shot. And the bird went, nani, nani, boo, boo, nani, nani, boo. And the man went, and he picked up the bird and he walked through the woods and he came to the door and he walked inside and he sat on down in the floor and he said, he sang a little song that I want you to sing with me. He sang, I don't have to hear that song no more, no more. I don't have to hear that song no more. And when you do it, you got to do that. So let's sing it together. I don't have to hear the song no more, no more. I don't have to hear that song no more. Then a strange thing happened. Because outside the wind began to blow and it moved through the trees and the twigs began to click and to clack and to slack and to slip and to lip and to dip and to dap. And the sound of the twigs and the twigging and the drag through the wind that was blowing through the trees outside sounded a little like this. Ready? Nani, nani, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny. I am big. I am strong. Ugly. I've got a mean heart and I've got a gun. And I don't like that song. I don't like that song at all. So he got off the floor and he took that bird and he put it on his cutting board. He took a knife and he cut up that bird into 100 little bits. Then he started a fire on the stove and he put the pot with the water, and he put the pot with the water on side of the stove underneath the fire. And then he put the 100 bits of the bird inside the pot of water and he covered up the top. The fire boiled the water in the pot with the bits of the bird inside, and the boiling of the water started to move the top of the pot that was moving like this. And it sounded a lot like this. You can help me. Get your fingers up by your mouth. Put your hands up like this and go. I don't like that song. I don't like it at all. I am that song keeps singing. Oh, well, he turned off the fire and he took that pot and he walked outside the door, got off the floor, walked off the door, walked through the woods all alone. He put down the pot and he dug a hole. He had a shovel there. And he poured the water that was boiling in the pot with the 100 bits of the bird inside. He poured it inside of a hole. And then he buried the bird and left it on the ground and walked back through the woods and walked through the door and into the floor. And he sat with himself all alone and sang, I don't have to hear the song no more, no more. I don't have to hear that song no more. Huh. Huh. But then the house began to move and to groove and to shake and to quake as the ground underneath it began to grind and to ground and to moan and to mound, to quake and to shake, and it sounded like this. Get your hands up. It sounded like this. I don't like that song. He got up the floor and he walked through the door. He took his shovel and he walked outside and he went through the woods and he dug up that bit, 100 little bits of the bird inside. And then he had a box and he put those bits of the bird, 100 little bits inside of the box. And he put on the lid and he nailed it shut. Then he took that box with the 100 bits of the bird inside. He took it down to the side of the lake. And he put that box with the bits of the bird inside of a boat. And then he got a boulder and put the boulder inside of the boat. And then he wrapped a rope around the boulder and tied it to the box with the bits of the bird inside. He pushed out the boat, he got inside, he rowed to the deepest, darkest part of the lake. Then he took that box that was bound to the boulder, the box with the bits of the bird inside, and he threw them all into the lake. And the boulder pulled the rope which was bound to the box, and it sunk to the deepest, darkest part of the lake. And it sounded a lot like this. Get your hands up. And he rowed back to the edge of the lake. He walked through the woods, he walked through the door, and he sat on the floor all alone, and he said, I don't have to hear that song no more, no more. I don't have to hear that song no more. But the story goes on. And there's a song to sing, and it sings like this, and it has a movement, and you can do the song and the singing and the movement with me. It starts like this. Tide goes by. You go. Tide goes by. To and fro. To and fro. What's tide tight? What's tide tight? Soon let's go. Soon let's go. Things that are buried in the bottom of the sea. Things that are buried in the bottom of the sea. Come floating up and return to you and me. Come floating up and return to you and me. Children playing on the shore. Children playing on the shore. Saw the box and wondered, what's that for? Saw the box and wondered, what's that for? Pulled out the nails, opened up to see. Pulled out the nails, opened up to see. 100 perfect birds flying up, flying free. 100 perfect birds flying up, flying free. And they were singing. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. The children started singing along too. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo. There was a band playing by with all the parents, and they heard the song. There was a rapper going by too. Yeah. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo. All the parents began to sing. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Everybody in the whole town. Deep in the forest, inside the door, alone on the floor, the man who was big and strong and ugly and mean with his gun sat all alone, and he heard it. He heard the children. I heard the band. I heard the parents. That song. It's the song of freedom. It's a song of, yeah, but, the song of what if, the song of, hey, wait a minute. It's a song of, I've got my own ideas. I can do what I want. As a freedom bird, I hate that song. I have cut it. I have boiled it. I have buried it. I have put it in a box and stuck it in the deepest, deepest part of the sea. But still that song of freedom comes singing back to me. The song of what if and my own decisions. I can be a free person. I have my own ideas. I hate it. But I, who am alone on the floor in the door, with ears who cannot hear and a heart that cannot feel, I will die. While that song goes on and on and on and on and on. Now, for moms and dads, once upon a time, I was in Portland. And there was a big conference, American Theater and Higher Education. I was there for some reason. And I went to a session that featured a Chinese performance artist who had had a red sash stretched across his last production. That was during Tiananmen Square, and they were not happy with what that could mean. He said, if I hadn't already had it approved that I come to this meeting, I'd never get here because of the social unrest. But there he was. I followed him into the elevator. He was by then with his wife and his child and a translator. I followed them out of the hotel to the first stoplight, the intersection. It was a red light. And I said, hey, man, I got a story for you. What? I got a story. You got to listen to this. I started telling him the story. The translator was like, translate. And I told him the story that I just told you. Halfway through, he's like saying, this is the story of my people. This is the story of my own land. I said, you're not done yet. Then we got to the end. I, with a heart that cannot feel and ears that cannot hear, I will die while that song goes on and on and on. I was crying. The theater director was crying. The translator was crying. His wife was crying. And the little boy was pulling on his mother, going, nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Lest we think that little parables are only things that we give to children for a cheap entertainment.